All right, CNT125 Risk Management Lab. The last podcast we got our game plan together and our map completed. So what I did was I just took a picture of that, a screenshot of that, so I had that handy here and I could leave it here. And now I'm moving on to lab. So make sure you cable up. Pay attention to your network map and your ports. Get your cables in the correct locations. I even put a reminder here on cables. Between unlike devices straight through. Between like devices crossover. Okay. What we're going to do now is I'm going to cable into, I'm cabling into my switch on the left of my network here, my top switch. I'm going to cable into that and give it a host name, IP address, and that's it for right now. So I'm into that one. I'm going to say no, I don't want to enter initial system configuration dialog. I'm going to do enable, and I'm going to do a quick show run and make sure there's no config on here. I want to make sure there's no config, and I also want to make sure there's no VLANs or anything that's going to affect what we're trying to do. If there is, use the cleanup commands at the end of the lab, and when you're done, type the reload command, hit enter, and it'll reboot the switch. Just don't save anything. If it asks to save anything, don't do it. Let it reboot, and then you should have a clean switch to work on. Now that I've done that, config T, and I actually had to do that in this switch when I started. I had to clear it off and reload it. I'm going to give this thing a host name, and we are doing, what are we doing over here? We're doing top switch risk. That's what we're doing. Top switch risk as in the risk management lab. I'm going to do interface VLAN 1, and I'm going to give it an IP address, and I'm going to follow my map. Some people in previous labs have been getting this IP and this IP the same, so it literally causes a conflict between the router and switch. So make sure these are unique. I normally always use the first IP for the router and the next one for the switch. So make sure these are unique so you don't have a conflict. 60, 60, 0.2, 255, 255, 240, 0. And we'll say no shutdown, so this becomes active. And there is my name and my IP. I'll do a show run on this real quick and make sure my name is good. It is. And down here, here's my IP address. Looks good. I would do copy, run, start, and save that. What I'll do next is I'll move on to the second switch and do that one. I did that previously, so I already have my second switch done. But make sure you do both. Once we're done with that, we'll move to our router. So I'm going to move to the 2811 over here on the left side of my network. So I'm going to move the console cable from my switch to my 2011 router. Let me log into this beastie. There we go. Enable. Config T. We'll give this guy a host name as well. I think we're calling this 2011 Risk. I think is what we're doing for Risk Management Lab. There we go. We now need the two interfaces and our routing protocol. So I need my two interfaces, and then I'm going to need my routing protocol. So I'm going to leave my map handy, because that's the information I need at this point. So we're going to say interface fast Ethernet 0/0. We're going to give it an IP address, 160.60, and my fast Ethernet 00 is this port here, so I need 0.1, 0.1. 255.240.0. We're going to do a no shutdown on this guy, and that should bring that online. I'm going to wait a second for my message to pop up. Then I'll say interface fast Ethernet 0/1 IP address, and this is now my WAN link, so I need 16.1, 160.60.16.1, followed by my subnet mask. And we'll do a no shutdown on this one. Now, this probably won't come online because I need to configure the other side. Now, side note, I actually did my other router, so this is actually coming online. Okay. We'll do an exit on that. And we now need our routing protocol. So we're going to do our router OSPF2. That's our process ID. That's down here. Okay, there's our process ID. We now need our three networks. So we need our 160.60.0.0 network with the inverse mask. Well, 00 and this third octet, we're using 240, and we've borrowed to the 16 place. So right here, let me do this guy right here. Let me see if I can put a comment here real quick. Just reminding you how to figure out your inverse mask. My third octet is 240, which is this. So the inverse would be 00001111. Well, that inverse is actually 15. And the quick way to figure that out is we've borrowed over to the 16 place. So 1 less would be all these, which would be 15. So my inverse mask would be 0015, 255. Okay, so inverse mask 0015, 255, area 0. I'm going to use the up arrow and put in my next network, 16. And I'm going to put in my third network, 32. And I'm going to say exit, exit. At this point, I'm going to, if I scroll down here, I'm going to look at my config and save it. So I will do a show run, and I'm going to look at my numbers and make sure they're right, and I'm going to compare them with my map. This is the time to fix it. So fast Ethernet 00, 160.60.01, 160.60.01. I'm double checking my subnet mask as well. Fast Ethernet 01, 16.1, 16.1. Subnet mask looks good. If either of these are wrong, go back to that interface. Just type the new IP address command and it'll overwrite what's there. Just type the new IP address command with the correct IP and it'll overwrite what is there. Okay, that's a quick fix. I'm also going to check my routing table down here. I'm going to make sure router OSPF2, and I'm going to make sure my 3 networks are in there with my correct inverse mask. So 01632, 01632. Okay, and my inverse mask, as I figured out, 15255. So this guy should be done. Copy, run, start. What I will do next is move my console into the 4221 and configure it. Now, I already did that previously, just like the other switch. I did this router and switch before I started. So I just showed you how to do this switch and this router. So at this point, I do actually have my network up and running. Again, make sure you do both switches, both routers. You're going to connect your workstation in and get it configured and communicating in the network. So again, make sure you do the other switch and the other router. Finish those. I did those previously. So now I actually cabled this guy in already. I'm going to do this one right now. So that workstation, I'm going to make sure it gets into my top switch. And then I'm going to set its IP configuration. So open network and sharing. Now, reminder, network and sharing. Reminder, a number of people have been having this issue. Make sure, go to your change adapter settings, make sure your Wi-Fi is turned off. That can cause issues with communication later in the network. So make sure that's turned off. If need be, go right click and disable. Click the disable button there. Once that's done, then go to your Ethernet 3 and we'll adjust the properties on this guy. So this one needs to be 160.60, 0 dot, I'm doing 10. And make sure your subnet mask gets altered here to 240. And then 160.60, 0.1. That's my gateway. Okay. Double check all that. Say okay, close, close. And then I'm going to verify with my command prompt, ipconfig. And I'm going to make sure that is all correct. Again, I will do the other PC. I did that previously on mine. So now that I have that, I'm going to do some ping tests. I should be able to ping the default gateway 160.60.01 on this PC. So I'm going to ping my default gateway 60.60.01 and I should get successfuls. I'm going to do the exact same test on my other computer, and I'm actually wheeling over here right now. And I'm going to do a test on that one to make sure 160.60.32.1 is my gateway. And I have a successful ping there. So again, both workstations in, make sure they're on the correct switch ports. I'm having to use port 1 initially, okay? Change the IP, subnet mask gateway, and then ping the gateway address. And now I'm going to try to ping between my two PCs. So I'm not going to try to ping from, I'm on this left PC here, I'm going to try to ping this right PC. So I'm going to try to ping 160.60.32.10. And I am getting it. Yes! So I now know my network is up and fully working. So I'm going to look at my routing table, show IP route, and I should see all 3 of my networks. And I do. I see all 3 of my networks right there, 01632. All right. It is very possible things are not working, so remember to use the troubleshooting tips at the end of the lab. What I'm going to have you do is go back through and check IP subnet mask, gateway kind of thing on the PCs, and then go into the routers and switches and double check the interface addresses are correct. And don't forget to check your cabling. Don't forget to check your cabling. That is often overlooked, but often a source of problem. So once you double check those, try your ping tests again, and go double check to make sure you're seeing all 3 subnets. Once you've done that, once you get your pings working through the network, once you see all 3 networks in your routing table, we're going to save the routing table. So I'm going to do this here. I will save once all 3 networks are there. I'm going to do a Control-C there. I'm going to open up my notepad, and I'm going to save my routing table. And I will do File, Save As, and I'm going to go to, I should have a Risk Management Lab folder. I do. So I'm going to call this Risk Routing Table. That way I know it's the routing table from this Risk Management Lab. There we go. So that shows me that your basic network is up and running. The basic network is up and running for this lab. All right. When we come back in the next, we're going to start implementing some of our security pieces.